and welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today me and Peggy are on our way home from the Women Drivers Social Club Weekender East. It's been a fantastic weekend, and I just pulled over to have a quick break before I do the very last bit of my journey, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to share with you guys about the fantastic weekend that we had. So the Women Drivers Social Club has been busy over the last 2 years doing lots of events, but a series of events that we had was the Weekender Compass Points. So the idea was that we moved our weekenders around north, south, east and west over the 2 years so that people had the opportunity for a event to be kind of a little bit closer to them, and for us to get round and see some places that were a little bit further afield by taking advantage of the fact that we were going to all be staying on in the area. If you've been watching the podcast for a while, you've probably seen much of those events going on, and so this was our last one, and we're looking forward to celebrating completing this Compass Points series at the NEC this year on our stand, so be sure to look forward to that. For me, obviously there was all the planning and stuff, but in terms of getting ready, I loaded Peggy up on Friday morning, having dug all of the camping gear out of all the various places that it ended up during our move, and loaded Peggy up, and then around lunchtime I met Sarah, who lives quite local to me, at a little services, and then we convoyed across into Norfolk, and so we did a lot of the A47 like I'm on now, and then a few interesting little back roads that ended up coming in quite handy. So really good journey over, just kind of made the one stop to meet Sarah, and then the one stop to towards the end to have a quick break, grab a few little snacks and stuff for camp before we arrived. When we arrived at our campsite, which was in Hemsby, a fantastic campsite, we've got really lucky with all of the campsites for this particular series of events in terms of them having great facilities, really friendly, really accommodating, because some campsites can be a little bit cautious about the fact that we are a group of people that are all getting together and a group of adults, but this site was fantastic. They were really thrilled to have us, and it was a really nice site because it was walking distance of Hemsby seafront, so we were able to take advantage of that as well. But we get there on the Friday night, and a few people are already there. Claire and Mush are already there, Katie's already there, Isabel and Charlotte are already there, and so we then start to kind of set ourselves up. And I have massive issues with the fact that the ground is so dry, and I have a bell tent, and so some of the pegs that come with these bell tents are really big, really thick, and so they don't always like going into very, very dry ground like we were experiencing there. So I ended up having to go off on a little mission to try and find some alternative tent pegs, and then do a trade for someone to get some tent pegs that would actually fit in the holes in my tent. Bit of a performance, but we got there in the end, and during that performance Sarah, Isabel and Lila arrived as well and started pitching up. Claire Atkinson arrived, and Melissa arrived, so a nice bunch of us on the site. We were due to have one more lot camping, but they had put in our group chat that unfortunately they'd had a head gasket failure on the A1 near Grantham, so we're going to be heading back home and looking into what their options were for coming across later. Unfortunately that also didn't work out, so Alex and Amy were greatly missed over the weekend, but hopefully they're able to get Reggie back on the road up and running soon, because he's a great car and was on our NEC stand last year, so we're all a big fan of him, even if he has some temperamental head gasket issues at the moment. We spent the evening, after faffing about and doing all sorts, trying to get these tents up and into the hard ground, sat around the campsite catching up. It had been a couple of months since most of us had seen each other. We were joined in the evening by Sophie and Hannah, who were staying at some kind of little chalet accommodation locally. We had ourselves a nice little takeaway on site, and yeah, just a nice catch up and chill evening at the campsite, which after battling to put my tent up was exactly what I needed. During our chill time at the campsite, Isabel had looked up the place that we were supposed to be going the following day, the East Anglia Transport Museum, and I'd been in touch with them and tried to get hold of them and tried to get ourselves booked in as a group, but failed miserably really, because they just kept passing me off to someone else, to someone else, to someone else, which is a shame because I've heard great things about when you get to go there. But I'd been speaking to people and I'd said, like, I want to come across on this Saturday for our weekender. Who do we need to speak to? And they kept pushing us off to this person, and in the end I went, and this is probably not the best way to organise these sorts of things, but I'm really lucky with the way that we do the Women Drivers Social Club, that there is an element of flexibility, and I just went, well, where's not going to be open like that on a Saturday of a bank holiday weekend in the summer for people to come, because you want to be making the most out of people's availability and getting people into your sort of attraction. I'd given up trying to get in and speak to them that way. It wasn't going to cost that much to go in as individuals, and we'd all arrived together, so solved most of those problems. Unfortunately, nobody, when I'd spoken to them about coming across on a Saturday, had once mentioned that they no longer open on Saturdays, which is crazy, if I do say so, because it's a bank holiday weekend where people are going to be looking for stuff to do on a Saturday. All the tourism and stuff in the area is going to be up, and also there was a lot of other stuff on the Sunday and Monday in the local area that people will have been going to if they were into transport, as we'll get on to. And so to not be open on the Saturday seemed absolutely insane. And so when Isabel had looked up the distance for us to get to it on the Saturday, just out of curiosity, it had flagged up that they were no longer open on some Saturdays. So luckily, on me and Sarah's detour through some back roads, we had passed the Norwich Aviation Museum, and also a really nice looking farm shop that I'd actually kind of put in the back of my mind as somewhere to go along to when I was on my way home as a little stop. And I said, right, well, we'll go here. It's open. It looked really good from the roadside when we'd seen it, and we'll go there. So we updated everyone, and then went to bed and woke up the next morning ready to go and see some aeroplanes. So we did a pretty nice drive through some back roads, as a lot of that last leg in Norfolk often is, through kind of Potter Heigham and places like that, and ended up back at the Aviation Museum, got ourselves all nicely parked up. We were joined by Vicky Peacock, who had some issues with her camper, so she'd come up in her modern a Mitsubishi, and had got herself a hotel room in the local area. And yeah, so we were all there, and honestly it's a fantastic museum. We had an absolutely brilliant day there. We got there for kind of about 10:15 and had a really nice explore around it. So much in there. A lot of aviation museums spend a lot of time focused on war and your planes to do with the Air Force and stuff like that, and obviously that stuff is really interesting and really important, but I particularly enjoyed their display on the kind of growth of some of the commercial flights and British based local flights and things that they had in there that was particularly interesting, and something that I'd not seen a lot of in other museums that I've been in. They've also got 3 planes that you can pay a little bit extra to go around. They've got a really good gift shop. The tea room was quite nice. So we spent a good couple of hours there before we then all loaded back up in the cars and went to Black Barn Farm, where they have what looks like a brilliant campsite from what we could see of it. Glamping options there as well, and a really lovely cafe, some nice little kind of bits and bob shops and kind of arty shops and some craft stalls and stuff like that, so that was really lovely. And then we headed back to the campsite and had a walk down to the seafront at Hemsby, walk around all the little shops there. And yeah, it was a really nice time out. We all did a little bit of kind of swapping about of people in whose cars and all of these things. So people got to try out cars that they hadn't been sat in before, and yeah, lots of fun. The walk down to Hemsby wasn't too far, so we were able to have kind of quite a nice little walk and chat and catch up with people, lots of story sharing, and then we came back to the campsite, all sat round, enjoyed our usual nonsense chatting around the invisible kind of campfire, and yeah, just had a really nice evening at the campsite, in preparation for what was going to be a very long day the following day. Because the following day I'd managed to get us parked up as part of a very small show that was happening on the seafront. So at the seafront at Yarmouth there is something called Joyland, and there is also Joyland's American Diner. It's kind of like a pleasure beach situation, and they have some gardens and stuff there that they were planning on having a small collection of classic cars on. So we came along, got ourselves on there through talking to the right people, and put on what I think was a pretty decent display. I would say that whilst we had an interesting range of cars, everything from a Citroen DS to a Mitsubishi Outlander to a Polestar to a Morris Minor, a Scirocco, a Saab. Like, we had a pretty big range of stuff. So whilst not everything was traditional classics, we did have the ability to basically double the numbers of cars that were in attendance at this little display, which meant that all the people that were there for the East Coast Truckers event that was going on had a little bit more to look at. And for people that seem to think that the British seaside is dying and that there's not a lot going on, Great Yarmouth was absolutely heaving. It was brilliant. But in a good way. Like, we could still get round, still the ability to go to lots of the attractions, to enjoy yourself, but there was a real buzz about the place. We walked all the way down one side of the seafront. We had breakfast at the Joyland Diner as a group, and then we kind of split off into some smaller groups. My group kind of walked down the seafront, popped into some of the tat shops and some of the amusements, aiming for the Merryville Model Village and amusements. And I'd been to the amusements when they were open for my birthday last year and had a fantastic time, but the Model Village hadn't been open because it was off season. So to be able to go around that was really good. We had a great laugh and explore. Got ourselves an ice cream, did some more walking around of all of the shops and amusements, walked back up, and because we'd eaten at Joyland in the morning, if you spend over £15 at the diner, you get a little token for the Joyland amusements, and so we were able to go on a ride. And given that we are all big fans of Claire and Mush's Mavis the Snail, there was only one ride that we could all go on, and that was the Joyland Snails. They are kind of quite iconic, so we all had a go on the Joyland Snails, had a bit of fun, walked down the pier, and then headed to get into a good position for the Truckers Parade. So the East Coast Truckers have a display of convoy vehicles that go round the Norfolk area on the Sunday of the bank holiday with a children's charity that they're raising money for, and also some children sat within the truckers kind of living their dream of being in a truck as part of a big convoy. And so the whole of the streets were absolutely lined with people watching as these trucks all came past at around 6 o'clock. It was a good half an hour or so of procession, which was absolutely fantastic, and yeah, absolutely brilliant, great to watch and see. We then headed on to get some fish and chips, and my favourite place in Great Yarmouth has to be the Harry Ramsden that's got the great big ship coming out of it, so that's where we had our fish and chips. And then as the seafront and everything had cleared of all the people that had been there for the day, we were able to get some really nice photos of the cars with kind of the pier and everything in the background. I love the seaside, so to get some really nice pictures of Peggy at the seaside with kind of your typical British iconography of the seaside in the background was really. Back to the campsite where Claire and Mush had purchased some build your own kind of planes and gliders, and it was then a challenge in the dark for a few of us to try and build them. They were various levels of difficulty, and unfortunately I ended up with quite a difficult one, so I ended up enlisting Katie's help after she'd finished with her more simplistic one, and I couldn't have done it without her, but I ended up with a pretty cool little biplane afterwards. Then it was off to bed, because we knew that we were going to have to get up in the morning, dismantle camp, and get ready to go to our final stop of the weekend. We were booked into Caister Castle Car Museum, and so we headed there for 10 a.m. and we were joined by Amy in her VW Beetle, who had joined us the day before as well, and she lived quite locally, so it was a nice little show on her doorstep, really showing the point of the fact that these weekenders do end up close to people who haven't been able to come to all of our events eventually. So Caister Castle Car Collection was brilliant, and I think I've probably got enough to say about that it warrants its own podcast, because it is a fantastic place, and it's a place that I hadn't been in a very long time. It's changed a lot, but also very stuck in its certain way of doing things, so a really interesting place that I'd love to talk to you more about. We had a fantastic time going around it, and without giving too much away, my absolute favourite thing was not a real car. They have two very special not real cars in there that I had no idea still existed. I had no idea were still there anywhere even, and that they were there. I was totally not expecting to see them, and yeah, I thought they were pretty fantastic. So we did that. We all stopped and had a bit of a tea break in the tea rooms Me and a couple of people went up the top of the castle, and then we moved on to our surprise last stop. At the seafront the previous day, we'd actually met a lady who lived very locally, who had an MGB and a Land Rover on display, and was telling us that she had a hangar very nearby where she was rebuilding a Gloucester Meteor that was quite a rare version. This one is a Mark 7, but it also had some other interesting stuff about it. Would we be interested in coming along, having a look at all of her work that she does on her Land Rovers, and also particularly into this Meteor that she was working on, and it happened to be incredibly close to Caister, so we said yeah, absolutely, we'll come along after we're finished at Caister. She joined the club, and so we were able to get in touch with her and say we're finished at Caister, we're on our way, and so we headed over to her and had a really interesting hour or so there. I got to sit in the in progress Meteor. It was quite scary getting in and out. I'm not sure I'm built for being a pilot, which luckily is not on my bucket list anytime soon, because I was a bit nervy about falling out or whatever once I got up there and then had to get back out again. But I did it, and very pleased that I did, so thank you very much to the WDSC ladies that encouraged me to get up there. And yeah, fascinating place, and it's in Rollersby, and there's a little model shop that she has as well, but also her plan is to start doing demonstrations and stuff with the Meteor once it is more rebuilt. She's got several more parts arriving to start building it all back together this coming Friday. So I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic thing to go and see once more of it's put together. But it was fascinating, and her knowledge on it is amazing, and so very cool, and we really enjoyed it, and it was a nice little extra on the day. So huge thank you to Abby for that. And it was time to all start heading home, as I'm continuing to do here, and it's been a fantastic weekend. I'm so thrilled that every time I get to spend time with the Women Drivers Social Club, I end up leaving with a big smile on my face, feeling like I've had a brilliant weekend, hanging out with some great people with brilliant stories, brilliant experiences, and just the same love of cars as I do. So I'm so grateful that this little thing that I started coming up for kind of 3 years now has continued to grow and support other people in finding their people. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing about our weekend, and remember, if you are a woman into automotive and you'd be interested in coming along to our events, we are always welcoming. We don't mind if you've got a classic, whatever you've got. We always say the best car is the car that gets you there, so it doesn't matter what it is. We will welcome it and include it regardless of what it is. And we'd love to see some more faces coming along more regularly to our events. But in the meantime, let's wrap that up, and I'll be sure to come back and tell you all about the Castle car collection in future. And in the meantime, thank you ever so much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.